On a dusty morning in February 1943, north of Kasserine Pass, German tank commanders witnessed something that defied their understanding of armored warfare. 5 American Sherman tanks, separated by broken terrain with no visual contact, converged on German positions with supernatural timing. No flags, no flares, no dispatch riders, yet they moved as one organism, each covering angles the others couldn't see. The German panzer forces, equipped with their Fuge 5 radios, struggled to hear their own company commanders through overwhelming static. Their 10-watt transmitters, state-of-the-art by 1930 standards, barely penetrated a few hundred meters when tanks were moving. Most German tanks carried only receivers, unable to report threats or call for support. The Americans possessed technology the Germans didn't know existed: frequency modulation radios in every single tank, crystal-controlled precision, 25 watts of transmission power, and clarity that cut through battlefield chaos like a knife. 8,000 miles from Detroit's assembly lines, the most decisive technological advantage of World War II was revealing itself, not in armor thickness or gun caliber, but in invisible electromagnetic waves. This transformation began on July 26, 1941, when the U.S. Army standardized the Signal Corps radio SCR 508, 528, and 538 for all medium tanks, while German forces advanced through Russia using radios in only command vehicles. American engineers at Galvin Manufacturing Company, later Motorola, were perfecting FM technology that would render German systems obsolete. The engineering team included Daniel E. Noble, who conceived FM's military applications, and Henrik Magnuski, who solved the technical challenges of installing sophisticated electronics in tanks. Their creation weighed 181 pounds and transformed every Sherman into a node in the world's first battlefield network. The BC-604 transmitter generated 25 watts, 2.5 times the German Fuji 5's output. Operating in the 20.0 to 27.9 megahertz range, it provided 10 preset channels with crystal stability. The dual BC-603 receivers in the SCR 508 allowed commanders to monitor multiple frequencies simultaneously, a capability that would prove decisive. The revolution lay in frequency modulation itself. Edwin Armstrong's FM technology eliminated the static that plagued amplitude modulation systems, while German radios picked up every electrical discharge as noise. American FM radios delivered crystal-clear communication even during artillery barrages. Operation Torch brought American armor to North Africa in November 1942. The Afrika Korps, despite being the Wehrmacht's most experienced armored force, operated under severe communication limitations. A standard German tank platoon of 5 vehicles included only 1 or 2 with full Fuji 5 transceivers. The rest carried receivers only. They could hear orders but couldn't respond. This created catastrophic vulnerability. When command tanks were destroyed, easily identified by their multiple antennas, entire platoons lost coordination. American forces, where every tank could assume command functions, exploited this weakness mercilessly. At Kasserine Pass in February 1943, though tactically a German victory, the battle revealed American capabilities that stunned Wehrmacht observers. Scattered elements of the 1st Armored Division maintained coordination across 50 miles of battlefield. Tank crews who'd never met coordinated attacks warned of threats and called artillery through crystal-clear FM communications. German signals intelligence intercepted American transmissions and noted their exceptional clarity. More disturbing was realizing that every American tank appeared capable of full transmission. The Fuji 5 radios, operating on amplitude modulation, suffered fundamental limitations. 10-watt transmitters struggled to reach 3 kilometers in ideal conditions, dropping to hundreds of meters when moving. September 1943 brought American armor to Italy, where mountainous terrain should have negated radio advantages. Instead, FM technology proved even more valuable. The SCR 508's frequency modulation handled multipath interference far better than AM. American tanks coordinated through terrain where visual signals were impossible, and German radios failed completely. On D-Day, Sherman tanks maintained contact with naval fire support, coordination impossible with German technology. But hedgerow fighting revealed a critical gap. Tank radios couldn't communicate with infantry operating on different frequencies. American innovation solved this within weeks. Crews mounted EE-8 field telephones in boxes welded to tank exteriors, wired directly to internal communications. Operation Cobra demonstrated American radio superiority's full potential. The 2nd Armored Division coordinated over 200 Sherman tanks through networks, enabling unprecedented battlefield control. German defenders faced an enemy possessing supernatural awareness. American tanks responded instantly to threats reported miles away. Artillery strikes arrived within minutes of identification. The contrast was stark. Panzer Lehr, once Germany's premier division, operated in communication poverty. Most tanks lacked radios, depending on visual signals where visibility rarely exceeded 100 meters. The irony was profound. Germany had pioneered radio use in armored warfare. Heinz Guderian had insisted on radio equipment since the 1920s, yet by 1943, German production couldn't provide what his doctrine demanded. Statistics revealed the crisis. In 1943, Germany manufactured 5,700 medium tanks, but fewer than 2,000 Fuji 5 transceivers. Many went to command vehicles, leaving regular units desperately short. Soviet forces suffered worse. Most T-34s entered combat without any radio. While Lend-Lease provided some relief, only 25% of Soviet tanks carried radios by war's end. Motorola's Chicago factory represented American industrial might. Each SCR 508 required 2,648 components manufactured to exacting standards. Production statistics told the story. 1942, 3,800 units. 1943, 11,400 units. 1944, 24,000 units. Total wartime, 50,000 plus sets. This ensured all 49,324 Sherman tanks received sophisticated radios, an achievement no other nation approached. The tactical advantages transformed American doctrine. Combat commands, flexible task forces, depended on reliable communications. American commanders created ad hoc battle groups, confident they could coordinate through compatible radios. This flexibility baffled German commanders, accustomed to rigid structures necessitated by limited communications. At Aracourt In September 1944, the 4th Armored Division faced multiple panzer brigades with superior Panther tanks. Germans had every advantage in armor and firepower, but American coordination proved decisive. Every Sherman reported enemy positions instantly. Tank destroyers received targeting from tanks they couldn't see. Over 3 weeks, the 4th Armored destroyed 281 German vehicles while losing 41, a 7.1 ratio defying technical specifications. German intelligence never grasped American communication superiority's significance. Reports mentioned coordination but attributed it to training rather than technology. They continued targeting supposed command tanks by antenna configuration, not realizing every Sherman could coordinate responses. They planned ambushes, assuming Americans would lose coordination when separated, not understanding radio contact maintained cohesion regardless of visual contact. In March 1945, the capture of the Remagen Bridge demonstrated American command speed. Radio reports reached headquarters within minutes. Within an hour, division shifted to exploit the opportunity. German forces, dependent on telephone lines, American aircraft destroyed, couldn't respond comparably. The Ruhr encirclement showed communications superiority's culmination. American columns coordinated complex envelopment entirely through radio. Inside the pocket, 325,000 Germans found themselves trapped, partly because communications collapsed. Field Marshal Model's final messages revealed their plight. No contact with adjacent units. Fighting continues, but coordination impossible. The psychological impact was profound. Americans fought knowing they were never alone, connected through radio waves. German crews experienced isolation, fighting individual battles within larger engagements. Otto Carius wrote about limited communications challenges, though focusing more on tactics than the communication gap itself. After Germany's surrender, American technical teams evaluated German equipment. Their findings confirmed combat experience suggested German tanks possessed superior armor, but catastrophically inferior communications. U.S. Army Report No. 176 concluded German communications were approximately 5 years behind American systems. The statistics reveal American achievement's magnitude. American radios produced 50,000 plus Sherman tanks produced 49,324 radio deployment rate 100%, transmission power 25 watts, range moving 7 miles versus German production FUG, 5 transceivers, ACE 6000, medium heavy tanks 12,000, full transceiver rate 20%, transmission power 10 watts, range moving 0.5 to 1 mile. This superiority established principles governing modern armored warfare. Today's tanks carry communications tracing lineage to the SCR-508, digital but based on universal deployment and reliable coordination. The Sherman's radio superiority represents electromagnetic spectrum victory, proving more decisive than armor or firepower advantages. German crews discovered too late that every Sherman wasn't just a fighting vehicle, but a node in history's first battlefield network. The SCR-508 transformed adequate tanks into components of a weapon system, including every other American tank. German forces never developed effective counters because they never understood the gap. Field Marshal Keitel's reported comment. "We knew how to build better tanks, but you knew how to make them work together," captured fundamental truth. America built not just 49,324 tanks, but 49,324 nodes in the first armored battlefield network. The invisible revolution that began when the first Sherman, with SCR 508, entered combat changed warfare forever. The network defeated the platform. The connected overcame the isolated. German military's failure to recognize this stands as World War II's great intelligence failures. They built superior tanks, fighting as individuals, while Americans built adequate tanks, fighting as coordinated teams. In the end, electromagnetic waves carried by SCR 508 radios proved more powerful than armor-piercing rounds from German 88mm guns. The ability to coordinate, share information instantly, and fight unified, determined victory more than visible superiority. Sherman tank radio superiority established the principle: in modern combat, connection equals survival and isolation equals defeat. A lesson German forces learned too late on battlefields across 3 continents.